Okay, good evening, everyone from every part of Nigeria. We are all welcome to this section. If you can hear me, can I see some reactions? Can I see your emoji? Are we excited for today? It's another packed section. It's our last section, and it promised to be engaging, to be impactful, and to be fun-filled. We welcome you. We welcome everyone here. Please reach out to your friends that are not here yet. Tell them we are live. We are live and we'll be starting soon. Tell them we are live and we'll be starting soon. Thank you. Thank you very much. And welcome again. Welcome.
Just demonstrating that we've always been part of the community, we've always been contributing, investing in it, and being part of the growth. Of course, I also won the Matai Impact Award in 2019. But we never stopped. We kept investing, we kept being part. When DSM was marking its 5th anniversary in London, we had the opportunity of meeting a lot of some of the trustees, particularly Ulrich. And of course, you can see Emily as well, who joined. And we had only one message. When will deep learning in Indaba come to Nigeria? We have been giving, coming, traveling. When are you going to give us our own fair share of the cake? Of course, in 2022 in Tunis, we were there big time. And that was where we had very strong Nigerian agenda, where we made a formal request to host the Indaba, meeting a lot of the leadership. We had only one question. Indaba must come to Nigeria. We have been given, we have been part, we must host Indaba. And then, September 2023 in London, when Instant Deep launched their very special movie on Cape to Carthage, that was when Shaquille gave his word with Avishka, Bayo, we're going to come to Nigeria. Don't worry. And they kept to their word. Please give them a round of applause. And thanks to Karim, because Karim was in the room as my witness when they gave their word. And of course, from there, the planning started. Of course, we went to Dakar with a lot of energy. And there in Dakar, we had the first meeting with Avishka and Vukosi to develop a very comprehensive hosting proposal and plan. And of course, our community was there. Nigeria know the carry last. Just mention anywhere, we're going to be there. So passionate and so committed people. And of course, 2025 in Kigali, the announcement was made, and it was a fantastic story. And 2026, here we are in Nigeria hosting the 8th edition of Deep Learning Indaba. It's a great journey of investing, committing, rising to the game, giving to the continent. And if you are desiring to host it one day, just invest as we did. Be there for everyone and give all it takes. Watch out for more details because there's so many other things. How we got this university, many other places we went to, people who work behind the scene. I think it's good to capture the stories. So I'll publish a more detailed journey of Indaba to Nigeria very soon. But there are a few things I want to talk about. I call them the 5 diseases that we must avoid as we build our community. As someone who has been part of building community and ecosystem, there are a few things I've noted that might challenge the passion and the dreams of the founders of Deep Learning Indaba that we must address, if indeed we want a platform like this to drive tangible development. The first is what I call attendee access. I believe my French colleagues will pick the interpretation by the side. What is attendee access? I just want to attend all the Indaba event, but you're not actively translating the learning to the community where you came from. You like to play big on the bigger stage of Indaba, but when we call you for Indaba X, the local community in your country, you don't give back, you don't contribute, you don't invest in people, you don't build. You just like big events. Let's go to the next big country. But that knowledge is not translated. That's a big disease that can kill our ecosystem. And I need to break this table and talk about it as someone who has seen true results coming from building people. Today, anywhere I go, the greatest joy I have, I walk to a company, I see 10, 20 people.
Okay, good evening everyone. Thank you for that video. So if you want to watch the full video, we'll be dropping the link in the comment section so you can pick it and watch the whole video. So good evening everyone. Thank you for joining us again for our third and final. I believe we have all learned a lot and we all have different views and understanding on how AI works, how to use it, when to use it, right? So it has been a wonderful 2 weeks together. My colleague said, reach out to your friends and to your colleagues to join today's session. So we don't miss. Thank you, Effiong. Good evening to you too. And to everyone who dropped where they are joining us from. Let me just read out a few while we wait for others to join. The WhatsApp group is open in case you need to communicate. Yes, Babajide has dropped the link. Thank you for that. So please, you can pick it up and watch it when you want to. So thank you, everyone. So I'll be sharing my screen and so we can start today's session. Josephine, thank you. Good evening, Josephine, to you. Eunice, thank you. Good evening to you too. So give me a minute to share my screen so we can begin today's session. Please let me know when you can see my screen. I'll need your reaction so I'll know you can see my screen. Okay. So your reaction. So I know you can see my screen. Can anyone see my screen? Bridget from good evening. Oh no, can't see my screen. Okay, okay, yes, so everyone can see my screen. Okay, fine. Thank you very much. So let's start. So good evening everyone. Thank you once again for joining us here on AI powered assessments and student evaluation. Our agenda is the same as usual. We'll talk about DSN, talk about the community, then we move on to our session. So I'll briefly run through DSN so that we can begin our session. So Data Science Nigeria is Africa's leading artificial intelligence and data science organization committed to building AI talent, developing innovative AI-driven solutions, and delivering high-impact projects for global organizations. With a track record of working with major international stakeholders, DSN has successfully executed AI and data-centric projects across diverse sectors, including finance, healthcare, education, agriculture, and social impact. Please, at any point you can't see my screen again, you let me know. Okay, so yes, you can. Okay, thank you. So I think we can move on. Okay, so the mission of Data Science Nigeria is to raise 1 million AI talents and build AI solutions that improve the quality of life and well-being of 2 billion people in emerging markets. Now, DSN does this through what communities which are spread across Nigeria and abroad. And communities that are present in these areas. So we have our campus communities, we have our ladies in AI community, kids and things, AI for schools, AI for professionals, AI for executive, for researchers, talent, AI startups, practitioners, and partner hubs. But for today's session, we're here to talk about our vibrant AI community, AI enabled teachers community, right? So the community that exists to empower educators with cutting edge knowledge and skills application in artificial intelligence, right? Through revo- through teaching methods and approaches for the digital age. Now, this is done through comprehensive teaching and practical hands-on experiences through this AI seamlessly into classrooms, thereby fostering innovation and personalized learning experiences. I believe we have all had this experience from our previous sessions, and today is not going to be different. So before we move on to introducing our tutor out to talk about our DSN at 10 celebration. So as we all know, we have been saying it for 2 weeks now that DSN is celebrating its 10-year anniversary, and we would like to know how DSN has played a role in your life. So please, we encourage you to scan the code or pick up the link and do that when you can. Tell us how DSN has helped you here for 30 seconds so we can scan it and share our testimonials or share our success stories or share our impact stories. Now, the hashtag we'll be using for AI enabled teachers this year is AI enabled teacher hashtag data science Nigeria. So at the end of today's session, we're going to talk about our next steps. This is the final session. We're going to talk about the next steps. So we already know process self learning live sessions. This is the last one. Capstone project. We're going to talk about that after this session, and then certification. The timeline for our project, we have talked about it for 3 weeks. This is our final session. So learning is supposed to end on Monday, and then you have up until September 6th to submit your capstone project. And then, like we always like from 14th of September. Benefits: top participants will get access to boot camp. You get to share your story live at DSN at 10 celebration, and then you get an invite to DSN boot camp. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. So, I'll hand over to my colleague Michael to introduce the tutor, and then we can begin today's session. While the session is going on, you can drop any questions or comments on the chat. If you don't use the chat, the WhatsApp group is open. And if you're yet to join the WhatsApp group, we're also going to drop the link to the WhatsApp group in the chat so you can join in on YouTube. Thank you for joining. I hope you're with us. If you have any question, you can drop it on WhatsApp. I will pick it there too. So it's WhatsApp group is open for everyone, both on Zoom and on YouTube. So Michael, if you can hear me, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah. So right now we'll be introducing our facilitator of the day, who is Ime Yang. He is the co-founder of SPR Nigeria Limited, also SPR Technologies, where he served as an AI engineer, technology consultant, and learning designer. He develops kid-friendly educational technology. He designs technology curricula and also leads learning experience for schools, organizations, children, and young missions. His mission is to help children and young people discover their place in the world of technology, help them explore technology career paths, and also develop the skills they will need for to be a confident builder, creator, and also a problem solver who makes a positive impact on the world. So right now, I will be handing over to our facilitator. Please, if you are here, please signify or give a shout out, please.
Hello, good evening, Fulhanshaw. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Good evening. So I'll be handing over to you right now.
Good
So,
evening. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to share my slides right away. Okay, please confirm you can see my slide. Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, DSN, for having me, and thank you all for being here. I'm really excited about this particular topic because it connects quite closely with some of the things we are dealing with, or we've been dealing with at EXPA this past year, as well as some of the work we are currently exploring and building around. So I think we are going to have a really good time with this one. We'll keep it practical. We'll look at some real examples, and hopefully by the end of this session, you'll see a few ways AI can make assessment and evaluation not just faster, but genuinely more useful for you and your learners. So I will share I'm going to open my camera right now. Hope you can see me. Okay. Well, it seems like there is a lag between the transmission here and whatever you're seeing on my camera. So pardon if the voice isn't matching what you see from me. Okay. So today we'll be looking at one of the areas where AI can have a very practical impact in teaching: assessment and student evaluation. But I don't want this session to be a session about the best AI tools for grading. Instead, I want us to think about the process. Because before we ask AI to generate a test, mark an assignment, or write feedback, there is a more important question, which is, what are we actually trying to find out about our learners? Once we answer that, we can decide what evidence we need, how to collect it, how to interpret it, and where AI can help. So let me just ask this question briefly. When you hear AI and assessments, what is the first thing that comes to mind? I'll be looking in the chat to see what you have. I'm going to look and see your responses. When you hear AI and assessment, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Okay, someone says no idea for me. Someone says understanding AI. Okay. Any other? Helping to analyze the score. Good. A computer-aided evaluation. Okay, that's great. That's great. Means the grading is from computer, not from the teacher. Okay. Let's see, AI can help me grade and do analysis, evaluation. Thank you very much, Esther. Okay, Mfon says making easy complex tasks. Okay, automated way of assessing students. Very great. So it means we have an idea of what we are going to be discussing, and that's really good because we are going to skip some introductions. We are not going to explain AI again. We'll just move in continue from what you have dealt with in the previous weeks. So we'll start by clarifying what assessment and evaluation really mean, then look at how AI can support both the design and evaluation process. From there, we'll consider why AI is useful, where its limitations lie, and finally, bring everything together with practical examples. Okay, so let's start with something very ordinary. Imagine you have a student who has stopped submitting assignments. What do you do? You might immediately think the student is not serious, but notice something important. That is already an evaluation. How many of us have had that experience, right? You have a student who is not submitting in work, and then you just conclude, look, this student is not serious. Have you been there? Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. We've all had that experience. Yes, in some case. Right. Someone said, I'll call such a student and ask why. Okay, great response. Yes, yes. Everyone who is a teacher in whatever capacity, you've experienced this. Someone is not turning in assignments, right? So, but when you say the student is not serious, you've already made your evaluation about that student. You've made a judgment about that student. But what evidence do you have to prove that this student is unserious? Maybe the student doesn't understand the topic. Maybe they have too much work. Maybe the assignment instructions aren't clear. Maybe they are struggling with something outside the classroom. And these are all real things. So before we evaluate, we often need to assess. Someone says some students are actually not serious, but sometimes it's from teachers. Yes, yes, that's a very balanced view of it. So we need evidence, and that distinction is the foundation for everything we are discussing this evening. So in terms of assessment, in simple terms, assessment is about collecting information that helps us understand something. Evaluation is what we do with that information. Think about a simple classroom example. You give students 5 questions after teaching fractions, right? The questions are assessment mechanisms. You collect the answers, then you look at the answers and conclude. Most students understand addition or fractions, but not many, but many are actually struggling with unlike denominators. So that conclusion is your evaluation, all right? The assessment is the questions you give to them, the 5 questions. Then what you have concluded about after you have gotten the feedback from the student, that is your evaluation. Now, when we hear evaluation, we often immediately think about marks. But evaluation doesn't have to mean a final grade. For example, you might want to know, are students paying attention? Are they retaining what I taught last week? Which concepts are confusing to them? Are they participating? Are they improving? So these are very, very important to us as teachers, because it's not just about the grade of the students. It's not just about giving the best report to whoever you're reporting to, but it's essentially about the growth and the goal for that gathering. So a teacher could use a quick exit ticket at the end of the class to discover that 70% of the class misunderstood one concept, right? No grade is necessary in such a situation. The evaluation is simple. My students haven't understood this yet. And this is what tells you whether you are going to progress on that particular topic, if you're going to go past that topic, or you need to revisit that topic. And that information can change what the teacher does next. So quickly, let's dive in here. Where does AI fit? Now, we bring AI into the picture, and there are two useful distinctions I'm going to make for the purpose of this session. So sometimes AI itself is performing the assessment or evaluation. Other times, AI is assisting the teacher, who remains responsible for the process. For example, an adaptive learning system might notice that a learner is struggling with a particular category of questions and adjust the difficulty. If you've used something like DataCamp, if you go into something like the is it scorecards, right? But they have certain questions with cards, right? And they keep changing the question, they change the question, they change the question. Now, you would notice that if you answer two questions consecutively wrong, you'd notice that the question changes and it becomes simpler, right? It becomes something you are more familiar with. If you are able to answer more questions correctly, you'll notice that it changes and becomes more difficult. Have you ever interacted with such a platform? Or have you seen that feature in DataCamp? Anybody? Just say yes, I have, or no, I haven't. Yes. Okay. Mfan says yes. Mustafa says yes. Who else? Okay. So that's an adaptive learning system. And that means that the AI is actively performing the assessments, right? Now, contrast that with me asking AI, here is my learning objective. Help me design 5 questions that will reveal whether my students understand it. Now, the AI isn't assessing my students in this other case. It is helping me design the assessment. That's the distinction that we are going with today, right? AI-based evaluation and AI-assisted evaluation, or AI-based assessment and AI-assisted assessment. So why bring AI into this process at all? There are several reasons, right? The first is efficiency. A teacher might spend hours creating different versions of an assessment, organizing responses, applying a rubric, or writing similar feedback for dozens of students. AI can reduce some of that repetitive work. The second is adaptability. A traditional assessment often gives every learner the same questions in the same sequence. AI-enabled systems can potentially respond to what the learner is doing, for example, increasing or reducing difficulty based on their responses. The third is personalization. So imagine you have 30 students submit an assignment. The teacher may identify 5 different types of difficulty across those submissions. AI can help organize those patterns and produce feedback that is more specific to each learner. And finally, there is Simplyscale. Without assistance, it can be difficult for one teacher to deeply analyze every response from every learner, especially when you're in an organization like a public school, right? Let's say public secondary school. you find that you are having to deal with more learners than the system would recommend you deal with, right? So in such a situation, the scalability AI brings is your advantage, which is the purpose of what we are doing here. So AI can process more information, but there is an important qualification we must bear in mind. AI makes it easier to process more information. It does not automatically make the information better. And we'll expand on this as we progress. So earlier we differentiated between AI-based and AI-assisted assessments and evaluation processes. But actually the boundary isn't always perfectly clean. Many real systems have humans in the loop. For instance, the university I am finishing my program at, Miva University, uses AI-powered system to flag AI submissions and for plagiarism, right? Turnitin, right? So, but it actually requires, the school actually requires that every lecturer reviews the submission of the students. So even if I make a submission on, say, deep learning, and the system flags my work as 90 something or 80 something percent AI use and plagiarism and stuff like that, the policy requires that every lecturer should still review that work, right? And identify whether truly the plagiarism claim is true and whether the AI assisted claim is also true. So a teacher might use AI to suggest a grade, but the final decision relies on them. So rather than obsessing over whether a particular tool is AI assessment or AI assisted assessment, ask a more useful question. At what step is AI participating and who is responsible for the final judgment? Now, that is a much more useful way to think about AI in education. So this is probably the most important idea in today's session. When we think about assessment, we often start with the instrument. We need a quiz, we need an assignment, we need an exam, but that's starting too far down the process. Instead, work backwards. Suppose I'm teaching photosynthesis, right? By the way, how many biology or biology-related teachers or lecturers do we have here? Anybody teaching biology? Biology. Nobody? Okay, how about math? Are we teaching math here? Okay, Ibrahim teaches biology. That's great. Okay, Ronke teaches biology. Great. Choma teaches math. Kudus, basic science. Great. Okay, let me just have whatever you are teaching, just drop it here. Math, biology, agric, English. Great. So we have many use cases here. Okay, someone teaches coding, basic science, physics. Great. Government and civic education, which is a very, very dicey one when dealing with AI. Computer science, business studies, digital technology. Great. Data analysis, chemistry. Okay, awesome. Linguistics, awesome. Okay, so let's say we are teaching, since I mentioned biology already and we have some biologists here, let's say we are teaching biology, right? This is the situation we are having ourselves in, photosynthesis. I shouldn't immediately ask AI, give me 10 questions about photosynthesis, right? that's not what you want to do. In fact, that's a trick that we do when we are actually studying, right? Give me 10 questions for on XYZ subject, and we now say this is the grading rubric and XYZ. We do this during our study session, but it's we make it a little more advanced than just this. Give me 10 questions, right? So, but first, I should ask myself, what do I want to know about my students? Very important, especially when you are dealing with basic education level students, those in primary and secondary level. And I say that because the way the system has been for a long time is just been about getting either 100% or getting 70% pass mark. It's just been about passing. But there isn't so much depth to understand the students in person, which is why teachers who give attention to these things are heavily appreciated by both students and parents and the academic community. So you need to ask yourself, what do I want to know about my students? Do they remember the definition? Do they understand the process? Can they explain why sunlight even matters? Can they apply the concept to a new situation? Those are very different things to assess, and that should be your concern as a teacher. So here is a framework I want you to live with, right? A very simple framework, and we are going to put it to test. And it's this. First, the goal. What do I want to understand about the learner? What do I want to understand about the learner? Do I want to check if they are memorizing what I have taught? Do I want to check if they can apply what I have taught to a very different situation? Or do I just want to check attendance? What do I want to understand about the learner? Next thing is the criteria. What would convince me that they understand it, right? What would convince me about that goal, that they are meeting my goal? So if your goal is, I want to know that my learner is understanding, what criteria will I use to know that the students actually understand what I am presenting them with? The third is your method. What kind of evidence would reveal that? Fourth is the instrument. What specific assessments will I use to collect that evidence? So, using something simple, suppose I teach essay writing. Someone here said they teach English, right? My goal isn't necessarily students can write an essay. Maybe my actual goal is students can construct a clear argument and support it with evidence. Now I can decide what evidence would demonstrate that. A multi-choice quiz might tell me whether they remember terminology, but it probably won't tell me whether they can construct an argument. So the assessment instrument should come after the goal and criteria, not before. So this is another important mindset shift, right? That there is no perfect assessment. An assessment is only as good as its purpose. There is no universally perfect assessment. A crossword puzzle can be a great assessment if I want to check recall or terminology. It's probably a terrible assessment if I want to know whether someone can repair a machine, right? Which is what we deal with a lot of times in the tech environment. In an interview, they won't just ask you very simple question. and stuff like that. They would ask you very relative questions that are targeted, right? And questions that reveal whether you have an experience in XYZ or you can do this. This is the reason we always encourage people to post your work, whatever you've been doing on GitHub, right? Put it on GitHub for memory's sake, and also post about it on maybe LinkedIn or X so that people get to know that you do this, right? That's the evidence people are looking for. So a multi-choice question can be useful for checking understanding of a concept. But if I want to know whether someone can communicate professionally, I might need a different approach. So don't ask, what is the best assessment? Ask, what assessment is appropriate for the thing I want to know? And this is one of the places where AI can be very, very useful, not simply by generating questions, but by helping us think through our design. So we are going to have a very practical hands-on session here. I want to show you this. I'm going to use AI, but I'm not, notice I'm not going to do certain things. I'm not going to ask it to create a quiz for me, but we are going to work backwards. First, I'll give the AI my teaching context. Then I'll establish what I want to know. Then we'll explore what evidence would demonstrate that. Then we'll decide what assessment method makes sense. Only at the end will we ask AI to help construct the actual assessments. So, who has an idea for us to try here? We have a prompt, a scenario here. I want to know whether my students actually understand what and not whether they can memorize it. So, who wants to give us a topic we should try? Anybody? Give us a topic. If I like your topic, that's what we are going to use. Ecology. Okay, okay. Geometry. Great. Photosynthesis. Okay. Atom. What's atom? I think it means atom. Modeling. Um, Ecology. Okay, I'm seeing ecology again. Rule of law. Balancing my goodness. I think the best thing, public finance, I think the best thing for me to do is do the one that I know. So let me see. Because I'm seeing a lot of things here. Okay, what is democracy? Life cycle of a butterfly, quadratic. Okay, I'm really tempted by some things. Study habits. Study habits. Study habits seems very nice. Okay, so let me just pick something here. Okay, I think I'm going to go with classes of food. Recurring decimal, fractions. Okay, okay. So I'm going to go with classes of food for the benefit of everyone here. Balanced diet. Great, great. I'm going to go with classes. Thank you so much for your feedback, everyone. But I'm going to go with classes of food because I think it's something all of us can relate with. All right, so I'm going to open ChatGPT somewhere here. Let me be sure that you are seeing my screen first. Okay, somebody says CS styling. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to ask the question. What am I asking? I'm asking, I want to know whether my students actually understand various classes of food. Okay, so the first thing we'll do, just like Dr. Daniel said in the previous session, right? Context is very important. AI doesn't understand your context, so you have to make that very clear. So I will say this, I am teaching 5th grade kids food science, and I want to know if they understand, if they actually understand classes of food, not just whether they can memorize it. If they really understand classes of food and not just whether they can memorize it. I am thinking of an assessment, but let's work through it together. So remember I said that there is the AI is assessing and AI is helping you develop your assessment. So in this situation, we're having AI help us develop the assessment. Now, the first thing we said is what's the very first step in our workflow? Can we drop it in the chat? What's the very first step in our workflow? Yes, kudos. Thank you very much. Role or context. Yes. So the first is the goal. The goal. Thank you very much, Esther. The first thing is the goal. And our goal is captured here when we say, I want to know if they actually understand. So our goal here is understanding, right? The topic is classes of food, right? And so I'm just going to drop it here. So in this situation, we are going to be having a conversation with the AI. Please, can you confirm you can see my screen? Great, great. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So, absolutely, I think your instinct is exactly right. If the goal is to know whether 5th graders understand classes of food, then an assessment that simply asks whether 6 classes of food is the weakest. First, let's define what understanding would look like. Okay, so are you seeing this here? This line is revealing something. This line is revealing something. So what is it revealing for us in our workflow? Can you identify for us what is it revealing? What's this line? Let's define what understanding is. What is it leading to? What step in our workflow is that statement leading us to? Criteria. Thank you very much, Clement, Mustafa, Esther. Thank you very much. It's leading us to our criteria, right? Because, I mean, if you're going to be grading me, you have to tell me what's the criteria for pass or fail, right? And this is why it's very, very important now in the academic industry that when you design an assessment for a class or a student, you have to reveal to them what your rubric is. What are you using to measure them? This is for the purpose of transparency, right? And accountability, so that students can properly appeal their grades. If something gets wrong and they look at it and they see that if they feel they answered correctly based on what you have said, they can question, right? And say, so I don't think that what I was scored was actually my grade. I think you should give it a relook. And he says, why? He now says, okay, you said you were grading us based on length, right? You graded us based on whether our composition was 500 words or 200 words, and I did more than 500 words, but you still marked me down, right? So criteria, making your criteria apparent to your students is very, very important. Thank you all very much for stating that. It means we are following this class. So yes, let's define what understanding would look like is actually revealing the criteria. So for each class of food, I'd want to see whether a child can do progressively harder things, right? Recognize, explain, connect, apply, reason. Hold on. It seems excuse me. Let me click stop here. I think a network issue. But let me go on explaining what I was saying. So now you're working with the AI to develop a criteria. So it says I would therefore avoid making assessments mostly multi-choice, right? So it is already advising you on what your assessment is going to look like, what your instrument will look like. And it says a multi-choice is not the best. Real foods are neatly divided into 6 boxes, correct? For example, okay, so we could also deliberately include trickier foods. Before we build the actual assessment, I'd like us to work backward from what you actually taught them, because classes of food can be taught with slightly different classifications and emphasis. Okay, so tell me, what classes of food did you teach them? And what did you teach about each class? Okay. I would just say I would say assume I taught all I should for a 5th grader, right? Assume I thought what I should for a 5th grader. Let me refresh this because something is happening here. Just give me a moment. The network should rectify that. Okay. Okay. Assume I thought all I should for a 5th grader. It even gives us a guideline, says 45 minutes, right? Is it 15, 30, 45 minutes? Is it written individual assessment? Assume I taught all I should for a 5th grader. Recognize. So let's pick recognize, identify a food or class. Rice belongs mainly to which class? Connect. What does the class help your body do? Okay, so let's deal with connect, right? So I'm not a food scientist. If I'm wrong and you're a food scientist here, please, you just correct us and we'll be glad to learn from you. So I'll say assume I taught all I should for a 5th grader, and I would want to know whether they can connect the class to its function. What would our criteria look like? So if your primary question is, can a child connect a class of food to its function, then I would make the assessment criterion much more specific than simply gets the question right. the key is to distinguish recall from functional understanding. So a good core criterion if a fifth grader demonstrates understanding of a class of food when they can identify the class, states what it does for the body, connect the function to a realistic example or situation. So it gives us an example question. Kojo has been feeling tired during football practice. Which class of food could help provide energy? Explain why. All right, so a child who understands should be able to reason carbohydrates, right, for energy. I would use a 4-level criterion: no understanding, recognition, right, correctly identifies the class but cannot connect it to its function. Functional understanding correctly identifies the class and states its function. Applied understanding identifies the class. So by this already, it has developed a rubric, right? You can even use this and paste it at the end of the assignment and say, okay, this is what I'm going to be grading you on, right? That you apply your understanding appropriately. Okay, so it gives us further guidance, but we should test every class against the same structure. Great, great, great. So I'll just skip to the very end. I'll actually score 2 dimensions. So you are working with the AI, right? So you decide at the end of the day what is going to fly. It can give you suggestions, but it doesn't mean you have to take it, right? You are the professional and the AI is the assistant. So it may have experience across board, but you are more experienced with your audience or your students. So you always have to have the final say with whatever the AI generates for you. Okay, so I'm just going to skip all these things. Okay, see, it even says this also lets you diagnose how they are struggling. Imagine you give, so this is so loquacious. It's a lot of talk that we don't want right now. Okay, so what's the next step? What's the next step in our workflow? Can we help me? What's the next step in the workflow? Help, 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 help. After criteria, what do we have next? We have method, method. And what did we say our method is? Let's open up that slide again. What did we say is method? We step back and we say method, what kind of evidence would reveal that? What would convince me that they understand, and what kind of evidence will reveal that? Now, if we look back here, we see that we are able to tell this from the rubric. Look at this again. It says method is what evidence do I need? What evidence do I need? What evidence do I need? And so your evidence is likely in this situation, your evidence is going to be something like this: sentences. Your evidence is going to come through something like sentences for this particular use case. Your evidence may appear like this, right? This is the evidence. This is your rubric, or this is your criteria for judging that, right? But this is your evidence. Your evidence is, maybe your evidence is text. So in this particular situation, the evidence we are dealing with is sentences. In a different situation, the evidence may be, if you are developing games, right? If you use gamified learning or game-based learning, right? Your evidence may be how they play the game, some other things. There are various ways you can deal with this. But for simplicity, we will leave it here. And then you say instruments. we say instruments. Instrument is how will I collect it? So method and instrument, they seem blurry at this point. Right? Why do I say they seem blurry? Because it's between either the technique in which you collect the responses. For in this situation, the technique in which we are collecting the response is question and answer, question and answer, question and answer. It may be a very different one. It can be puzzles in your situation. It can be a game. It can be many things, right? But for this situation, the technique we are using to extract this evidence is questions. And how are we going to present those questions? This is now when you start choosing platforms or tools. Is it going to be through, is it going to be an online platform that you're going to use? Is it going to be paper-based? Is it going to be, am I going to have to need an AI that that asks the questions? Or is it just going to be you read the question and answer, right? Thank you very much, Poco. How do I collect it, right? So this is now what you're dealing with. How do I collect it? The questions and the styling of the questions. So you now see that at this point, it's blurry. You are not able to distinctly tell whether you are dealing with the method or the instrument, but as you are progressing, and as the need warrants it, you will know best what to choose. So let's do one final thing here. The final thing we will now say is, okay, this seems to work. So the instruments we'll be using are, let's say 10 questions in this style. Develop 10 questions around the 6 classes in this style. I want a blend. I want some questions to be a blend between classes. And so because the AI already knows that we are talking with 5th graders, we've already established that you will notice that whatever the AI produces at this point is going to be questions that are easily understood by 5th graders. Okay. So 10 questions deliberately varied so that some test one-to-one understanding while others require the child to distinguish between 2 or more classes. Okay, so Ada is growing quickly. Her teacher tells her the body needs to build and repair muscles. Okay, so I might even decide to ask, this is cool. Let's change the instrument. This is cool. How about if we develop a sort of game around this? Sort of game around this, or these questions. How about we develop a sort of game around these questions? Simple online game. The learner has to select the right combination of foods Try food or combination of foods for the situation. It's something of uh learner um okay. It's so let me not clog my head too much. A simple interface with images of foods and the image of the situation, pixel type game. Okay. Yes, I actually think a game format may be better than a conventional assessment for this particular objective. What you're describing is essentially a food design making game instead of asking what class is this, we put the learner inside a situation and ask them, all right, so now you are asking the AI to develop a simple video game concept that can do this, right? So now let me just ask it for a prompt. I'll ask for a simple prompt and I'll take it somewhere and generate the game. Let's see if it works actually. We are still dealing on the assessment. We've not yet entered evaluation. Don't tell the learner they are being tested on the 6 classes. Tell them you're the food scientist XYZ. So this is one way to improve assessments. Give me a prompt. Okay. Okay. So give me a comprehensive prompt for developing this game with various um with the necessary levels stages and descriptions. Okay, so let's hit it. This is going to be a long one. I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to okay, so I'm just going to open Gemini on this other side, or yeah, let me open Gemini on this other end. While that is developing, I'll just copy the prompt and drop it in Gemini and see how Gemini creates it. I'll also give it to ChatGPT to see how ChatGPT creates it. Okay, so at some point Gemini may break. Oh, Gemini can break. Let me just let me see. What does the prompt say again? Okay, it's finished that. So let me copy this. Pardon the delay. Network is something over here. Okay. So sorry about the delay. I have to refresh this because it seems that it has frozen. Okay, so this is it. It's come here. Let's see how this works. Let's select the right one. Should have selected Pro. Okay, so this is where AI becomes especially helpful. You don't really know anything about coding, but you can leverage the skills of others that AI has been trained on to bring this to the classroom.
Sorry, Mr. Yang, but we can't hear you. If you can hear me, we can't hear you, sir.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes, please, we can see your screen. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so let's see how this works. If this actually, okay, this is not what we're looking for. Yeah, clearly Gemini didn't get that, so we won't even bother to to proceed with this. We won't even bother with this one. We'll just leave it here. So, but I just use that to explain. If you want, you can try this with ChatGPT, you can try with anti-gravity, you know. But here, Google is not really going to be very beneficial because it's going to have to create one single HTML document, right? So, and that's not the best design option for as a developer. So this may not be the best thing. The best thing may be to use something like anti-gravity, but I'm just using this to explain my point that you can use AI to help you in the development process of your assessment. Okay, so please just leave an emoji or something so I know that you are catching on with me. Okay. Okay, thank you all very much. So getting back into our class. So we designed backwards and we understood our goal first before going to develop the assessment. So the important thing for teachers to observe is not the specific prompt, it's the sequence of thinking. AI can generate a beautiful looking assessment in seconds, but if we gave it a poor objective, we've simply created a very, if we gave it a poor objective, we would have simply created a very efficient way to produce the wrong assessments. So now we've collected the evidence. This is where evaluation comes in. Suppose I have 30 student responses. The question is no longer, how do I create an assessment? It's, what does this evidence tell me? This is another point where AI can assist. We can give AI the learning objective, the criteria, and student responses, and ask it to help identify patterns. But we should distinguish between AI helping me interpret evidence and AI making the final judgment. That distinction becomes particularly important when grades are involved. So you imagine you have 40 essays or 30 essays, like we said. You already have a rubric, and AI could help you apply that rubric consistently across submissions. It could also help summarize common issues. For example, it could tell you 18 students provided evidence, but did not explain the evidence supporting the argument. Or just like in our situation, 18 students were able to identify the right kind of food, but were not able to connect it to the relevant body function that is going to be enhanced by this food. So that's useful information, but I would still want the teacher to be involved. AI can help process the evidence. The teacher understands the learning context and owns the final judgment. So the productivity opportunity isn't necessarily let AI replace the teacher's grading. It can be let AI reduce the mechanical work around grading so the teacher can spend more time on the things that require judgment. This is the piece I think is especially important. Assessment tells us what happened. Evaluation helps us interpret it. But if learning is the goal, we need to do something with that information. That's where feedback comes in. So good feedback should help answer, what did I do? How did I do? What should I do next? And AI can make personalized feedback much more scalable. Instead of giving the entire class the same comments, work on your explanation, we can potentially generate feedback that reflects every candidate's specific difficulty. But again, the lecturer should, or the teacher needs to define what good feedback actually looks like. AI can help produce that. So we are going to take some responses now, right? Let's take some responses. Let's create some responses from our earlier assessment, right? First, we evaluate it against our criteria. Then we ask what specifically is the student struggling with, and finally, what feedback would help them improve. This is where I would demonstrate AI producing feedback, right? But I will go one step further and let's ask AI for student feedback, something the learner can understand and act on. The teacher insights, what this response tells me about the teacher, right? And the next step, what the students should practice or revisit. And that distinction is powerful because the teacher doesn't just need a comment to paste on the assignment. The teacher needs actionable information. So now let's generate an answer. I'm going to branch this conversation so that I can leave this prompt here. So if you develop something like this, a better option is to use this download button. So it will download it as a document so that it's not scattered when you copy it. This seems to work. Develop 10 questions. Okay. Here. Okay. I'll branch this into a new chat. I'm going to generate a synthetic response, and I'm going to take it into a new chat, give it the rubric and everything, and ask it to judge that response or evaluate that response. I will say answer like I'm going to say answer like a third grader instead of a fifth grader. Answer like a third grader. Answer the 10 questions like a third grader. Get some points wrong and some right even in question. Let me give an example. Let's look at one of those questions. Okay, David has football practice after school. His mother gives him some boiled yam before he leaves. Why is yam a useful food for David before playing football? So let me give my example here and say, e.g., yam makes boys strong and tall. What class of food? Yam is a carbohydrate. What class of food is mainly responsible for this function? Why is yam a useful food? What class of food is mainly responsible for this? Yam, okay, carbohydrate. I'll just say carbohydrate. Okay. So yam makes boys strong. Okay. So let me change this strong because I think strong is the correct answer. Yam makes boys tall. Okay. But be more elaborate as a third grader. Do you understand the task? Generate 10 answers. Okay, if you understand the task, generate 10 answers. Okay, are we on board with this? Can we do with this? Guys, what do you think? Is this good? Okay, someone said yam provides calories. Oh, I think that's nice. Yam provides calories. Okay, guys, I'm hitting send on this. So, okay, send. Okay, so I'm going to put this in a spreadsheet and download it. Okay, let's see, download answers and spread question and answer in a spreadsheet with columns. Okay, Esther, you have a question. Please go ahead. Spreadsheet with column. Question and answer. Please choose an expression with column question answer. Okay. Okay, so I can't do that. So I'm just going to say stuff like okay, let's just leave it at that. I'm going to copy this into a document and place this in a document, and I'm going to get the rubric. So you find that I'm able to do certain things here that you may not be able to do because I'm using a paid version of Google AI. So that's why I have something like Gemini inside my Google document. So don't worry if it's not the same thing for you. I'm just using this to explain a process. I'm going to drop this here. Okay. Okay. I'm going to delete these other ones. Okay. And the next thing I'm going to do is okay, 1 second. Okay, guys, I see I'm overshooting, but I'm going to try to make this as fast as possible. So next thing I need is my rubric. So let me go find that rubric. This is my rubric. Copy this and I'll place it at the bottom of the document. Or maybe I should place it in a different place. So David has football practice, great. And I'll just create a new document and call that document rubric, David's rubric. rubric. Okay, I'll just drop this here. And I will make the outline more visible. Okay, so that is set, and I'll come back here and use the AI here to do my business over here. Okay, so I'm going to say, what are we looking for again? We said that the AI can do a couple of things: give students feedback, something the learner can understand and act on, what the response should tell me as a teacher, and what should the student practice. So I'm going to say score students answers based on this rubric. David's rubric, this is a document of interest. So I'm asking the AI to score the student based on this rubric. So please confirm you can see my screen. I'm going to enlarge this a bit. Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much. So then score students answers based on rubric, attach score at bottom of document. So we'll just look at a couple of questions that they answered. I think I should change this prompt and say score each question according to rubric. Okay, so it says it gives the grading, right? Based on this document, identifies carbohydrate, explains energy, and applies it. So level 3 is, I think level 3 is the topmost. So applied understanding, applies it appropriately to food situation. So let's see the first question, the answer to question 1. It says yam gives David energy to play football because it makes you strong and helps boys grow tall. Yam is carbohydrate because carbohydrate gives energy. Okay, that's correct, right? I may not be. It answered all the questions correct. This is not what we wanted. This is not what we wanted. But anyway, I can say I'll accept this because it seems like it has answered all correctly. Emeka eats beans and rice for lunch. Rice and beans are both just energy foods. Do you agree? Okay, so I'm going to say according to this, I'm going to say that it should give the student feedback, and give me insights, give insight to the teacher. Generates a simple feedback for students based on grade and give the teacher insights on what? Give teacher insight on what student performance should mean to the, excuse me, provide action steps for students. Next. Okay, so here is the feedback that we have received from this. Let me just apply it so that it stays. So, great work on consistently demonstrating a strong understanding of full classes and their functions. You identify XYZ and you do an excellent job applying these concepts like sports and meal planning. This consistent level, so this is the feedback you give the students, right? So the AI has done the analysis for you. This is for a language situation, right? I'm explaining this based on a language situation. But if it's a different case, you would need probably a different tool to address this, to provide the feedback. So this one says the consistent level 3 performance indicates the student master the core learning objectives. They are capable of recalling this and applying them. The student is ready for more complex challenges. So this is the feedback we want as a teacher. Okay, so I should move on to the next topic, right? Or I should deal with more complex topics. So action steps for the students, deepen knowledge, research this, that, and this is how AI can, improve your workflow as a teacher. So quickly, I'm going to run through the remaining parts of this so that I can explain some incident that happened. Okay, so let's zoom out. AI can assist us before, during, and after assessments. Before, it can help us clarify objectives, develop questions, create variations, develop rubrics, and critique an assessment design. Then during, it can help with adaptive questioning, data collection, accessibility, and other forms of support. And after, it can assist with grading, feedback, pattern recognition, as we've seen, and identify areas where the class needs support. But remember our process. We don't start by asking, where can I put AI? We start with, what am I trying to achieve? Then we decide whether AI actually improves that step. Now we need to balance the excitement with realism. AI can be extremely useful in assessment and evaluation, but it introduces its own problems. First, accuracy. An AI system can confidently, please confirm you can see my screen. Okay, Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay. So I was talking about accuracy, right? An AI system can confidently make a mistake if we are using it to evaluate students' work that matters. Then, secondly, consistency. Even when we give the same general instruction, AI outputs aren't necessarily as predictable as traditional marking schemes. You can see the example I just gave now. We asked the AI to generate some wrong responses, right? We said generate some wrong answers. We said get some points wrong and some right, even in question, but it went and answered everything correctly, right? It answered all correct. So that's a problem. It's not necessarily predictable. It's probabilistic. So that means you have to always verify because of its lack of consistency. The third is bias. The way an AI evaluates writing style or responses can sometimes reflect biases in the data or system. So I said fifth grader and I asked it to write like a fifth grader and it did the grading, right? So now what if your just hypothetically, what if your class are better at speaking pidgin, right? Let's say you are using, you are testing them via audio recordings. You've given them whatever to look at and they give their answer in recording. Maybe it is a WhatsApp platform and you are testing your students and each of them drops a recording and some of them give their responses in pidgin. Now you put it in an AI, the AI extracts the transcript, and when you now grade based on the transcript against your rubric, the AI is going to flag some terms wrong. It's going to say, okay, this person didn't get it right because they didn't say it that same way. Now, the AI is doing that because it is probably not trained on your local dialect or it's not familiar with the way you switch your language, code switching, as we would call it, right? So that is something you have to look out for when you are dealing with these systems. And note that the examples I've given you so far are relative to language systems. When I say language systems, I'm saying natural language systems like ChatGPT and Gemini. There are various AIs for various grading purposes and assessment purposes, and they work differently. But I'm basing my use case on language. Excuse me, by language, I mean text. Then there's the privacy concern. So student submissions may contain personal information. Teachers need to understand what data they are putting into an AI system and how that system handles it. And perhaps the biggest one is judgment. So imagine two students give technically similar answers, but one student is learning a second language. I just explained that, right? Someone giving pidgin or has misunderstood one particular part of the question. The teacher knows the learner and the classroom context best. So they can recognize something that isn't obvious from just text alone. So the lesson isn't don't use AI. It's use AI where it's useful, but keep human judgment where it matters. And finally, there's the risk of over-reliance. If AI makes something easier, we may start using it simply because it's convenient, even when it's not the best approach. The question should always be, does AI improve this step of my assessment process? So this is the guardrail I want to leave you with. AI is very good at producing results. That doesn't mean it understands what matters in your classroom. The teacher should own the learning goal The teacher should establish what good performance looks like. The teacher should understand the context, and particularly where high-stakes decisions are involved, the teacher should retain responsibility for the final judgment. AI can accelerate the process, but speed is not the same thing as quality. So let's return to our opening example where I talked about students not submitting their work. So it was gotten from a real experience we had with our young learners earlier in the year. Two students weren't submitting their assignments. And notice how different this looks from a traditional assessment, right? At this point, we're not necessarily going to give them a test. We needed to investigate a problem. We had a call with the learners and their parents in Incognito. We used ChatGPT to help us design the questions, suggest follow-up. In fact, we didn't even know the questions, the right questions to ask. All we understood is we want to know why these kids are not submitting their assignments, right? So the AI helped us develop questions and follow-ups and organize responses and identify the pattern and summarize the findings. It will interest you to know that we discovered that the students weren't lazy at all. What we found was that while one learner possessed strong initiative, he lacked emotional resilience and technical coping strategies for dealing with tool-based friction. So for instance, the learner had a challenge with GitHub, right? Maybe their code did not push to GitHub. Instead of them calling out, they just froze, right? And they decided they are not going to submit it. That was the challenge for one. For the other learner, we found he was afraid of making mistakes. We even later spotted some symptoms of ADHD, that's attention deficit disorder and hyperactive disorder. So, but we did not diagnose because we are not clinical experts. We only spotted symptoms. This is where AI really helps. Now, this revelation helped us develop unique guides for the students, the teacher, and for the parents. And that's why I don't want us to think of assessments as simply tests and grades. Assessment is about gathering useful evidence. So remember the sequence that we've developed in this session. Start with what you want to know, then determine what evidence would answer that question. Choose an appropriate way to collect it, evaluate what the evidence tells you, then act on that information, and only then ask where AI should help, right? Maybe AI helps design the assessment, helps to administer the assessment, helps to analyze responses. Maybe it helps produce individualized feedback. But the technology comes after the purpose, right? There's also a caveat here. Remember I said every evaluation is not for grading purpose. Remember I said that. Now, you may not always know your criteria for every evaluation. For instance, our young learners, we knew we wanted to know why they weren't submitting, but we didn't know or we didn't have a criteria for organizing their reasons. This was because we were following an investigative approach rather than a typical qualification. We didn't know what we're going to find in the course of our research. So you may find yourself in a similar situation, especially when you are not trying to grade a student. So, and that brings us to the bigger picture. AI-enabled assessment isn't really about generating more tests or marking faster. It's about helping us move more effectively from questions to evidence to insight and then action. when that loop gets better, assessment becomes more useful to the learner and more useful to the teacher. And that's probably the most important shift. Assessment shouldn't just tell us how students performed. It should help us decide what to do next. So thank you all very much. I'm going to stop here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ime. Please, everyone, let's appreciate him. Thank you for your time. Thank you for taking our time to explain every step. Yes, keep it coming. Keep the appreciation coming. Mr. Ime, I hope you can see our appreciation emojis.
Oh, thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. Very,
Yes.
very humbled by your responses.
Yes. Okay, so I believe okay, we're going now to the question and answer session. Please, if you have any question, kindly drop it on the chat or on the WhatsApp group and we'll pick it from there. Yes, so attendance has been shared. I believe we've all seen that. So far, I've only seen one question, and I'll ask that question while others type theirs in the chat. And someone is asking if you could please explain more on instruments, the part you mentioned. How do I collect it? Someone wants you to please talk about that again. Mr. Eme, I don't know if you got my question.
Yes, I did. I got your question. Let me go back to that slide. Okay. So I said that it gets blurry between instrument and method, right? Instrument and method. At some point, you are not very sure which one is the instrument and which one is the method. But I think a simple way to look at it is this. The method is how the instrument is what will I use to collect it, right? Think of the instrument as the what. So your instrument could be questions and answer. Your instruments could be your instrument could be a game. Your instrument could be a puzzle, right? And you now say your method is the how, right? The method is how will I present this? So just think of the method as the how. I could present it as a conversation, and if you say it's a game, you can determine how you are going to present the game. You can also, I think the other one I said is a puzzle, right? You can determine what kind of puzzle is going to be, all right? So, but at at either stage, you are trying to get a particular evidence, sorry, right? And you are answering what kind of evidence do I want to collect? So, for instance, the situation where we had the learners who were not submitting, right? Our instrument in that situation was question and answer, and the method of getting it was, or the method for receiving that evidence was a conversation. Instead of dropping it in a sheet and asking them to answer after the other, we said, okay, we are going to ask you a couple of questions and you respond to us. Even the way they were responding to us was evidence of something, right? We were able to tell from one of the students' response that, okay, this person is not even conscious about time, right? And their parent actually confirmed that this student is not conscious about time, just from the way they responded. So, like I said, it gets murky at some point to differentiate the two, but when you start your process, you will be able to know what is the instrument and what is the method. I hope I explained it to the best of your understanding without confusing you. suitable for tertiary. Could you please provide a more detailed explanation suitable for tertiary education? Okay, please, are you referring to, Aminu, please, are you referring to instruments and method? Hello, Aminu. Can you clarify? Okay, instruments and method. Okay. Hmm. Okay. What are you teaching, please? Or if you are teaching in the university, or what is it you are teaching? Okay, you're teaching biology in the university. Okay. And let's say you are trying to see if your learners understand the various classes of organisms, right? That's what you want to know. Are they able, okay, let's say identify. Are they able to identify the various classes of organisms? That's your goal, right? And your criteria is the accurately identify the various organisms, arthropods, Homo sapiens, whatever you have in whatever classes you have. Then your method is what kind of evidence, right, would reveal that. What kind of evidence will reveal that they are getting this thing right? So in this situation where is in this situation where you are dealing with the various classes of organisms, your evidence is just basically, let's look at the instrument first. The instrument is what is the specific assessment you will use to collect this evidence. So let's say your specific assessment is multi-choice, right? The multi-choice is that. So the evidence that reveals that they know what they are doing is, in this situation, they answer it correctly. Can you give me a more complex situation? Just give me a very more complex situation, because I'm using a very, very, very simple method and it seems to collapse everything. If you give me a complex situation about a criteria, and then I can help you with instrument and method. And it's okay if you speak up so that we don't delay from typing. Hello, is Mr. Aminu here? Okay, so let me just restate that just in case he's not here. So in this situation, that very simple example I gave, the instrument is the question and answer. The evidence I am looking for is just the answers that they give, right? The answers that they provide, which in these questions is A, B, C, or D. I hope that answers the question. So, any other questions?
Okay, for now, none. I'm going through the chats. Okay, so I think that will be all for now, Mr. Ime. I think you can round up this
Okay,
session now.
okay. Okay, and that will be all from me. And please employ AI sensibly in whatever you're doing. Especially at the tertiary level, there's been situations where um, you have AI flagged students poorly, and turns out that the student did very well. Like I know for myself, there was a particular submission I made on a particular topic. I think it was on I think it was on AI ethics, right? And the AI flagged my work as an AI generated work when actually it flagged it as 100%, when actually the only place that I had AI assisting was about 10%. Okay, I think it was computer vision. Yes. And the AI only the only place I had AI work with me is about 10% of the work, but the system flagged my entire work as 100% AI involved. So remember that you have the final say, you make a judgment. So as much as AI is simplifying your process, you have to ensure that you make the final call because it could have very bad effects on your learner at the end of the day. But enjoy it while you can and let it improve your work process and not let it not negatively impact your learner and your job as a teacher. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ime. One more time, please let's appreciate Mr. Ime. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't see our emojis. Yes, thank you for your time. Thank you for the session. Please, I hope. Yes, thank you. So this session is on YouTube. We'll be sharing the links tomorrow, but it's already on YouTube, so you can go back, rewatch. Everything you have learned in the previous session and today's session is what you're going to use to complete your capstone projects. So thank you very much, Mr. Ime. It was nice having you, and we hope to have you soon. Yes, so we'll be moving on to our program announcement. So a lot of us have been asking questions about the capstone project. And if you read the instructions on the LMS, you see that we informed you that the project was divided into two: section A, which was deployed last week, and then section B, which will be deployed this week. So you're supposed to complete both. You're supposed to upload your documents to a folder. So at the end of the process, you're supposed to share the link to that folder in a Google form that will also share with you on the LMS. I hope that's clear. So the process is this: you have two capstone projects to submit. One A, session A, capstone project A and capstone project B, right? So you already have access to capstone projects, to capstone A, right? That's on the LMS already. So for the B part will be shared with you on Saturday, same time. And then sorry, Saturday, 6 p.m. And then you're supposed to upload your documents to a folder. How you're going to label your folder or name your folder in your drive, we explained that, right? The format or the template you're supposed to use, we explained that on the LMS. So please, let's all go back and read the instruction on the LMS. So you go back and then you read the instruction on the LMS. Once you upload all your documents to the folder, you're supposed to provide, you're supposed second, once you're done, you ensure that the link is viewed. Anyone who has the link to that folder can view it or have the view access, right? So what you're going to do is that we're going to provide a form, a submission form. In that submission form, you'll be required to provide just the link to that folder. I hope that is clear. So if you have any question, please drop it in the chat and we'll answer it. So that's all about the capstone project. Thank you for. I believe we all understood everything that we have said today. Okay, very, very clear. So remember I mentioned next step. So next step, remember everything you're doing now is time bound, right? Let's share my screen one more time as we end our session. So please confirm you can see my screen. Someone is asking the deadline, so I'm going to run over that again. So for next steps, we have complete your learning. Learn supposed to end 31st, but since capstone project is ending 6th, we'll just end our learning and capstone project on the same day, which is Sunday 6th of September. To submit your capstone project and get certified. So let me show us our calendar. Please confirm you can see my screen. So deadline to submit your capstone project is Sunday 6th of September. So that form that we'll be sharing, that you provide the link to your folder, will be closed 11:59 p.m. on Sunday 6th of September. I hope that is clear. So please, if you want to take a screenshot, please do that. Yes. So, and if you still do not have access to the LMS, please fill the complaint form. We have shared that already, or you drop your complaint on the WhatsApp chat, and then we will attend to you. So, once again, everyone, thank you for joining today's session. It has been a wonderful 3 weeks together. So, I'm going to that'll be all from me. I'm going to hand over to my colleague. Me over to you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and we've come to the end of this section and end of this training as a whole. And I believe that we all have learned one or two things. For me, I have a lot that I'm taking home from this. I have a lot, and I believe we also have a lot of lessons and techniques that we are taking home from this. Can I see our emojis? Just to appreciate the team, to appreciate the facilitators, to appreciate even yourself for the time. We also want to appreciate you for the time, also for your time, for your efforts, for your data, for sticking with us to the end. You guys are amazing. You guys are amazing. And we hope to have more of this coming so that we'll keep encouraging and keep improving ourselves as the world is generally evolving into the AI era. So we can also evolve. Thank you very much. And let's follow us on our social media platforms. Let's go in line with our program timeline. Please, you can take a screenshot so that you don't miss the timeline. And I believe you also be getting notifications from us from time to time so that we can keep updating you about the programs. So once again, I want to thank you. The whole team want to thank you. And do have a wonderful evening. Till we meet again.